So anyways, yeah, this video today is going to be loud, in Jesus' name. Oh my God. I just need the lights to start coming off or like all of this stuff. Watch my landlord randomly drop by, I don't know. This video today is going to be about my testimony. I want to share my testimony, and I did share my testimony previously in a podcast before, but that testimony was like the clean cut edition that I felt comfortable with sharing with the church at the time, because I didn't have enough, I think, spiritual maturity in knowing who I am and understanding that, you know, like my identity and who I am, and that I'm truly fully accepted and forgiven. And because of that, I was really hesitant just to talk about everything that's really happened to me in the past, but I just felt like it's time to talk about it. And I also want to do this because I feel like there are a lot of people like me who go to church who don't really, the congregation doesn't really know 100% because they are not willing to really talk about everything that they've gone through. They're not willing to talk about, you know, their full testimony. Like, I even remember TD Jakes talking about how there's your testimony and then there's the real testimony that you don't share with anyone, that you wouldn't share with anyone while you're living on earth. And that's how I felt. I just said, like, to myself, aside from my family members, I would never share my testimony with anyone, my real testimony. But I think that is doing such a disservice and an injustice to God and to Jesus, because I want to show people how far He's brought me. I want to show people like that. No, there's no pit that's too deep that Jesus can't reach into, that He's not willing to reach into and pick you out of. There's nothing you've done that could be so horrible that He wouldn't still be willing to accept you. And I also want to come after a few issues I see in the church, which is just the idea of purity and being a virgin until you're married. And there's so much fixation and focus on keeping your virginity, which is true. We should be holy as God is holy. But I feel like if you're coming from the place of not the victory from the cross, but if you're as a Christian striving to finish your race, just striving and like, oh my gosh, I have to get to the place of where the cross is, where the victory of the cross is, without starting your race from the victory of the cross, realizing that it's already finished. You're already the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. You are holy. You're dead to sin. It's no longer you who lives, but Christ who lives through you. Yeah, it's gonna be really hard for you to keep your virginity and like be pure and like not fight with lust and all of these things. And I wish I had known that as a kid growing up, because the only thing I knew was you need to be a virgin before you get married. And so in this video, I want to come after that issue. I want to talk about what it means to be holy. It's not behavior, it's ownership. You're owned by God. Because you are in Christ Jesus, you are already holy. And I found that has helped me so much, like, even like in my life, my everyday life. Like, yeah, I'm a human being. Sometimes, like, you feel lustful, and everyone experiences that. But what's really helped me, like, the minute that happens, I'm just like, like, I'm just like, I am dead to sin. Like, I'll say it in my head, I'm dead to sin. Lust has no power over me. All these things, these temptations, these thoughts the enemy tries to put into my mind, it has no power over me. And it leaves like that. And that's been my experience. So yeah, I want to come after that issue, and I want to also come after the issue of abortion. I think it's a very important issue. There are a lot of women I know who have had an abortion, who are Christians, but they don't want to talk about it. But the sad part is, God didn't just redeem you so that you could keep silent and quiet and fearful because you feel like you have to protect your reputation. When you lay down your reputation at the cross, when you receive Jesus, because He laid down His reputation. I mean, Jesus was mocked. He was brutally beaten. People, like, even when He was hanging on the cross, they were telling Him to come down. Like, He laid down His reputation. He laid down all of heaven so that He could give you His reputation. There was a divine exchange at the cross. So there are women like me. Like, I was guilty of it too. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my reputation, my small little reputation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my small amount of acceptance when I'm already accepted and loved. And Jesus lays down his reputation for me, so I don't have to worry about that. I want to come after that issue because people don't feel like they can talk about it. And those women are the ones that God can use to reach out to women who are pregnant in bad situations, who feel like they have to get an abortion and they don't. So yeah, obviously I'm very passionate about it because, I mean, recently I just saw a video about like how abortion today is like the Jews, like the Holocaust. Like all these innocent people are being led to die, and the Bible says to lead people away from being slaughtered, to save people from being killed. If you have something in your hands, if you have some kind of power, some voice, use it. So that's what, like, I believe, like unborn children they're the most vulnerable, they're the most vulnerable population in humanity. They're unprotected. They're inside of our wombs. They're people, and it's so sad what's happening today, especially in America, and it's something I'm very passionate about. But this video is just going to be a tirade about how, we should do something about abortion, but I want to kind of put myself out there and talk about my testimony. And as you can guess, yes, I did have one. I had an abortion, and I want to touch later on in that more, but I just want to start off by saying, yeah, if that wasn't like crazy enough, like, yeah, you guys, like, this is how I introduce myself. Hello, like, I had an abortion. Like, that's not how I wanted to introduce myself, but it just came out. But anyways, like, I'm just gonna go with the flow, man. This video is just gonna happen. But yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarai. My family calls me Sadi. That really touches my heart. It's really hard, like in Japan, Japanese people pronounce my name like Sadai, and like I didn't realize what it does to you. Like after a while, just hearing people, like, it's not even really my name. Like, my name is Sarai. My name is Sadi, not Sarai, but like my name is Sarai. Let's go with that English version. I'm 27 years old. I'm an American living in Japan, and I've been here for 5 years. I came here, in 2015 on a study abroad program, and I came here like on a scholarship, interning at a newspaper, wanting to do my own thing. I did not have God in mind. I did not come here to help share the gospel. I didn't come here to serve others. That was not who I was. Just 5 years ago, that's not who I was. That's not why I came to Japan, but God had different plans for me. So I want to go back to where I grew up. I grew up in a household of faith. I grew up with people of great faith. My mother is a pastor, and I see my mom as like my father and my mother. My mother was a pastor, and I literally grew up like in a church. Like our house, whatever houses we lived in, we always made into churches. So I grew up going to church Wednesday and Sunday, like twice a week, and people would come over and ask for prayer. My mom would minister to them. That's the environment that I grew up in. That's the environment I remember, and I just remember like not really knowing who God was. I went to church because my parents were pastors. I was basically riding on my parents' faith. I didn't know who God was. I didn't understand Jesus. Like, it was just, to me, like their faith, what they wanted to do, but I was just there going with the flow. And like God had different plans for me. I believe as a Christian, you need to stand on your own faith, because when hard times come, you can't ride on someone else's faith. You need your own to stand through those. You need your own encounter with God. You need your own personal conviction of why you're a Christian, why you believe the things you do, because the world hates Jesus, and you're going to face a lot of persecution. You're going to face a lot of mocking, rejection, whatever. The list goes on and on, because they did the same thing to Jesus, and Jesus said, if they did that to him, what do you expect they'll do to you? So when those times come, you need to have your own faith to stand on. So I didn't have it at the time, and I grew up, like, my mother was divorced, which is like, oh my gosh, it's so shocking to like a lot of Christians. Like, I remember even in Tokyo when I was volunteering at this homeless shelter, and I was actually friends with these people, like these guys. I was their friends, and they were like, when I told them that my parents were divorced, because they're Catholic, I don't know, I like you Catholics, you guys are good, you're good. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I grew up, and with like a mom who was divorced, and I was sharing this with them, and they basically were just like, they were just like, do you and I was like, no, and they were like, then like you should never get divorced, and I'm like, you don't know what they were so mad about it. It was ridiculous. But anyways, so I grew up a child of divorce. I'm not just a child of divorce, I'm more than that, but I grew up in a household that was torn apart by divorce, and divorce is really hard. Like, even as someone who grew up in a household where their parents were divorced, later on when I was 13, it didn't hit me how hard it was until I started, trying to have my own identity, trying to become more autonomous. Like, when it happened so quickly, and I wasn't processing it. I wasn't processing what was happening. I was just kind of stuffing it down. I was just allowing the adults to make the decisions for me. I just wanted to see my dad. That's all I wanted when I could, but yeah, so it didn't hit me until I turned 13 and I became an adult, and my goodness, like, I know why God hates divorce. Divorce is horrible. It's horrible. Like, I'm not saying like if you get a divorce you're condemned forever, you're not going to go to heaven or whatever. Even Jesus said that in the cases of adultery or something like that, it's okay to get a divorce, but you should try and fight for your marriage. And I grew up in that environment, and like I said before, I want to touch on that idea, what I just heard myself say. I just wanted to see my dad. I just wanted to be with him. Like, I was a daddy's girl. I remember like always following my dad around when I was little, like just trying to be around him. And then like I remember when my parents divorced when I was 5 or 6, and I just remember one day my mom telling us that he wasn't going to come back again. And then I remember the next night like sleeping in my bed, and my dad didn't know I was sleeping, and him coming in and just like kissing me on my forehead and leaving. And then after that, my life was just a process of like going to court, custody battles, having to like actually testify against my dad or testify against my mom, like in court, in front of a judge, in front of lawyers, like doing all of this stuff, seeing my dad on the weekends sometimes my dad, he would man, sometimes like he was supposed to come and pick us up and take us to be with him, but sometimes he wouldn't show up. And I didn't realize, like, kids are so impressionable. After that happened, I had serious abandonment issues. I was like, oh my that I was so impressionable as a child. And I actually, even to this day a little bit, I struggle with this. If someone is late, like if we're supposed to meet up and they're late, I actually start panicking a little bit. Like, I'm just like, I have to be like, no, step it down. So that's the environment I grew up in. And when I did spend time with my dad, he was always, saying stuff about my mom. And then, my mom, I love my mom so much. I love you. I love my mom so much. She doesn't realize how much I love her, but she didn't want us to, she was trying to protect us, but she didn't really want us to spend time with her dad. She never really said anything horrible about him, but it was just like, what I'm trying to get at is I grew up in a household where both the parents were kind of against each other, and I didn't really get to spend time with my dad as much. All I wanted was him. I wanted his love. I wanted his attention. But my mom remarried, and she married this guy who is so kind. Like, my stepdad, guys, I love my stepdad. Like, he makes me breakfast every single day whenever I come back. He does my laundry for me. Like, he would help me with my homework. He's a little bit strict. Like, if I didn't, I love you, Carlos. Like, I love my stepdad, but he wasn't my dad. Like, in my heart, my dad was my God. He was my idol. And that was going to be very problematic for me later on as a kid, growing up into a mid-adolescent, then teenager, then a woman. It was very hard for me. My dad was like my idol, my God. And my mom eventually moved us to Florida. with my stepdad. We lived in this amazing, big, beautiful house. Like, I have some of the best memories there, like acres of land. We had so many animals, like goats, ducks. Yeah, we had goats. Like, one time, one of our goats got loose, and it attacked one of our neighbors, and they had to call the cops, and it was just embarrassing. Anyways, my mom loved animals, and we had 8 dogs at one time. I love dogs, and we lived in a really nice house, a nice life. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but I was still hurting inside because, like, I wanted that love from my dad. I wanted that love. I always wanted unconditional love. I needed attention all the time. Like, I am also a middle child. Like, I have a twin brother, but I pushed him out. He came out of my mother's womb because I pushed him out. So I was the middle child. And if you're a middle child, you know how it is. Like, you're kind of just in the mix of kids. Like, my mom, sometimes she would just call us. It was like a windmill of names. Like, sometimes I remember my mom eventually called me it or thing. Like, she couldn't remember my name. There was just too many of us. I have 5 brothers and sisters, so yeah, there was a lot of us. And anyways, so we grew up in a really big, nice house. Our life seemed perfect on the outside. Like, we had a church in the back of our house, and my parents were serving the Lord, but something was just not right inside. And I remember when I was 13, one day, just feeling this overwhelming emptiness inside that I needed to fill with something. I just felt so empty and broken. And I also noticed, like, I became a little bit angry. I was a little bit angry towards guys. Like, for some reason, I was just always angry about men. Like, even as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, if a guy wanted to be my friend even then, I was just always, like, trying to pick at them. Like, that was my joy. Like, trying to see, like, how many mean things could I say? What can I do to humiliate them? What can I do to hurt them? That was my thing, even then, as a kid. I didn't want anything to really do with them. Like, I remember one time a teacher, like, we were having like a ice-breaking activity, which I don't know why teachers do that. It's not fun. We were having an ice-breaking activity, and I think we were talking about, like, dating, and I literally heard myself say, if a guy asked me out, I would rip them apart. Like, I would tell them to go to hell. I would rip them apart. I would just make sure their feelings were hurt. Like, that's how I was. And I even remember with my twin, like, getting into physical fights with him, never getting along with him, because to me, men meant rejection because of what happened with my father. Men meant rejection, abandonment. They'll never do what they say. I'm gonna get hurt again. So, and even with my stepfather, like, yeah, like, for a while I tried to, like, get along with him and, like, be with him, but he wasn't like my dad. And I remember always asking for my dad growing up, and even to my stepdad, just to pick at him. And I don't know, I had some issues, man. Like, so, you know, I just wanted this unconditional love from a male figure, but at the same time, like, I hated men. And the final straw that really broke the camel's back, as people who are lame and old say, I'm just kidding, that broke the camel's back was when my mother went to Ecuador. She started going there for ministry. She started going there to build a church in the mountains for these Quechua people that I had no idea who these people were. My mom would leave for weeks sometimes. She would leave us well taken care of, but I felt abandoned. That's when it really monster. Like, I was like, ugh! Like, I hated everyone after that because I felt like, here it is again, this abandonment.
My dad abandoned me, my mom's abandoning me.
Like, I hate you. Like, I remember feeling so angry. And, you know, girls can be evil. Like, I pretended like everything was fine, but I tried to get my other siblings to turn against my mom. And I remember her coming back and just rebelling against her. Like, whenever people would leave in my life, I would just cut them off or just let them know I was not happy with them. And when my mom left and came back, you know, I didn't have my own relationship with God. I didn't realize what she was doing was very hard for her, and it was all for God. And I mean, it takes a lot to really go, like, at her age, to go and do what she's done, and I didn't understand it. And I just rebelled after that point. 13 years old on, didn't want anything to do with my parents. I hated God. I hated Jesus. I hated going to church. I hated Christians. I didn't want to hear anything about it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I remember one time like talking, because I used to kind of, talk to God because I heard my mom talking to God. That's another thing, like when I say I grew up in a household of faith, I mean like our background was like Pentecostal. Like my mom, guys, she reminds me of the female version of Paul the Apostle. I'm not kidding. My mom, she like goes everywhere. My mom, like, I'm so proud of her because she's a female pastor. She's so strong and incredible, and like she's a seer. She sees into the spirit realm. I remember growing up, Jesus would give her dreams whenever I would do bad things, and she would know, and then mom would punish me or whatever. But my mom is a seer. She's incredible. She's incredibly spiritually gifted, and not just spiritually gifted, but my mom has such a heart for people, children. She can sing, she can do everything. She leads well. Oh, I love my mom. If I can be like my mom, there's never going to be another woman like her. She's like a Joyce Meyer mixed with that woman who sings Elijah, the song about Elijah, when Jesus is coming back or something. What's her name? I don't remember anyway. She's like a Joyce Meyer type of woman. And I forgot what I was trying to say. Oh my gosh, self-sabotage. What was I trying to say? Yeah. So, like, I grew up in a household of faith, and like after that happened, I remember seeing my mom talk to God and understanding that it was very real, her relationship with him, but it wasn't real for me. But I would talk to God sometimes, and I remember just telling Jesus to get lost one day when I really made up my mind. I was like 13, like, just get lost. I don't want you in my life anymore. And after that, I just kind of did my own thing. But I remember God was still there all along, chasing me down. Like for some reason, I just so happened to make friends with this girl who was interested in Japanese pop culture and manga and anime, and for some reason she sat down next to me on the bus, and we started talking, and she started introducing me to anime and manga. I was that nerd. Like I was obsessed with Naruto. Like that was everything to me. Like I love Naruto and Bleach, and I remember I would stay up like just to watch the Adult Swim premiere of Bleach and Naruto with my twin brother, and that's the kind of kid I became. But I still felt so overwhelmingly empty, but I was very interested in Japan when I was 13 because of her. And after that, I remember my mom would continue to go to Ecuador, and like one time she told us she had a dream, she had a vision that the Lord wanted us to move to Miami. And I was so angry that we had to move to Miami again for God. Like, I was just so annoyed with this whole God thing. Like, why are we doing things like this that are really a big deal? Because God told you, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I was so angry about it. But we moved to Miami anyway, and we had a church there as well in our house. And the one thing I want to say though is one thing I did notice is growing up, like, we always lived in nice houses. We had a nice life. Like, I look back at that as the faithfulness of God. Like, even today, like we don't have much, but my parents like always gave me a good life. Seriously. And we moved to Miami, and then my mom started talking about but before we moved to Miami, me and my siblings contacted my biological father because we didn't want to do the move, and we wanted to leave. And I remember having to go to court, and then, we just decided not to go with him because of a very serious issue that was going on that I had no idea about my whole life. It was very heartbreaking for me when I found out what I did. And so we moved to Miami, and we decided to stay with our parents, but my mom started talking about Ecuador again, that the Lord wanted us to move to Ecuador and be missionaries there full time. And I was just like, I just didn't want to hear it. I was so angry. So my siblings and I contacted my father again. And again, in my heart, my dad was my idol. Like, he was my all in all. Like, he was my man. Like, that's my God everything. He's gonna solve all my problems. He's gonna give me the attention I want. He's gonna give me the love I want, the identity I want. He's gonna fill this emptiness. So we contacted him again. And most of all, he's gonna help us not have to go to Ecuador and live in the mountains with people we don't know. And so we contacted him again, and we went to court, and we didn't tell our mom what we decided. You know, she thought up until the last minute that we were going to stay with her, and it was very traumatic for her. I can't even imagine, because we all went into the room separately, spoke to the judge, and then we got escorted out through a different exit. You know, we were taken out of my mother's care and through a back exit, and when we were with my dad, one of the first signs that I knew something was wrong was, one of the first things he said to us was, you know, your mom doesn't love you because she went to Ecuador and she didn't stay and try and get custody of you. You know that, right?